My friends, there's something I need to say right at the beginning of this live. Israel is still officially at war, in case anyone forgot. Right now, there are Israeli soldiers inside enemy territory in 3 places at the same time: inside Gaza, inside Lebanon, and inside Syria. And the world stopped talking about it. It disappeared from the headlines, disappeared from the nightly news, and a lot of people out there already think, even here in Israel, that it's over. And I'll tell you something that might even sound strange to say, but in my opinion, it's actually great that things continue this way, because without the spotlight on it, the work goes much more smoothly. No cameras, no headline pressure, and no foreign politician making speeches. Those who are on the ground can get the job done at the right time and in the right way. But one thing is the world not watching, and something completely different is you thinking that everything is over, and it's not over. In the last 3 nights, while you were sleeping and I was sleeping, Israeli troops were operating inside southern Lebanon, taking down structures belonging to the Hezbollah terrorist organization, village by village. And it wasn't just these 3 nights, this has been happening every night, for months, without stopping. I mentioned the last 3 because they are the most recent and the most intense, but this has been the routine in southern Lebanon since the ceasefire. Go in, take down, leave, and come back the next night. And if there's silence in northern Israel today, it's because there are people working through the night to keep that silence going. And night after night, the work goes back to the same place, the summit called Ali El Tahri. Okay, I'll show it to you on the map in a moment. That's where the answer lies to the question I want to leave open here from the start. What exactly is Israel looking for in southern Lebanon with the ceasefire in effect since June? Remember that there's a ceasefire in effect. Don't forget about the ceasefire. It's not the village that Israel is looking for, it's not a house, and it's not a rocket this time. It's something that Hezbollah spent 20 years building under that summit, and I'm going to show you what it is in just a moment. And there's a twist in this story that came out yesterday and changes the whole game. For the first time, according to reports, Hezbollah itself offered to hand over that entire place to the Lebanese army. 2 months ago, they were threatening to shoot anyone who came near, and now they're offering the key to this place. And what important place is this? You'll understand in just a moment. The place is extremely important. If you're just arriving, go ahead and hit the like button, so you don't forget to do it at the end of the video. After Lebanon, I'll take you here to Gaza, because the yellow line also shifted this week. And now there's an international force on the ground inside the Gaza Strip. And at the end, I saved the most powerful story of all, which ended this morning in Jerusalem and started in Lebanon. This same Lebanon, 44 years ago. Live from Israel, straight from where everything happens, organizing the chaos of information for you. Leave your like now at the beginning so you don't forget to do it later. Check if your subscription is still active and turn on the notification bell, because that's what lets you know when I go live during a major event here in the region. Let's go over the last 3 nights, and I'm going to use what was reported by the Lebanese press itself. On the first of those nights, there was artillery fire and airstrikes on 5 different locations, and demolitions carried out by troops in 3 other places there in southern Lebanon. On the second night, another 8 to 10 locations were hit, and 4 more villages saw demolitions. And from last night to this morning, the local press described a violent night of attacks and demolitions in 9 locations at the same time. 3 nights in a row, and always the same pattern. It's not a big city that's being attacked, and it's not an isolated attack that makes the headlines. It's an entire stretch of villages right along the border, targeted one by one, night after night. And here I need to make something very clear to you, because it's exactly at this point that the leftists and the headlines out there twist everything. The target of these nights is not the village itself, it's the structure of the terrorist organization Hezbollah that was set up inside that village. Rocket storage under the house, launcher kept in the garage, observation post on the roof, tunnel entrance in the guy's backyard. And I've already explained here on the channel several times, for a long time, there are places in southern Lebanon. What you're seeing here is southern Lebanon, with the border with Israel, okay? There are places in southern Lebanon where the number of buildings used to store weapons is so high that you can't just pick and choose, like you take this one down, you don't take that one down. You just can't, guys. When the whole block has turned into a depot and base, the only way to wipe that off the map is to clear the entire area, to turn it into a real parking lot. It's not about demolishing a village just for the sake of it. It's that the village was turned into a weapons depot by Hezbollah itself, which claims to protect the people who used to live there but who don't live there anymore. And for 3 nights, the same name always came up. the place called Ali al-Tahri. Look here, guys. Kumi is here, look. Let me pull it up here. This one, this green part here, look. Ali al-Tahri, this place here. This is the main and extremely important target. There was also some discrete movement in the middle of all this, and we'll come back to that later in the live stream. The UN peacekeeping force handed over one of its positions to the Lebanese army, also in southern Lebanon. Who takes over the area when the Israeli troops leave is the million-dollar question, and that's the question running through this entire live. And there was an incident that shows what's left on that ground after months of war like this. According to the Lebanese news agency, 2 young men died and others were injured when an unexploded device went off later on the road between 2 villages. It exploded later after it was fired. Who knows when, right? And here I want to be very precise with you, because this is the kind of news that easily turns into an accusation against Israel. Unexploded ammunition exists in any conflict around the world, always has. To this day, they still find unexploded weapons from World War II, and in that area there is ammunition from both sides. There is what was fired by Israel and for some reason didn't work. And there is also Hezbollah's own arsenal, traps scattered in various places that ended up buried under houses, roads and schools. No one really knows in a case like this who the device belonged to, and I'm not going to pretend here that I know exactly who it belonged to. What I do know is that it remains on the ground afterward. That thing stays there for years, waiting for someone to come close at just the right moment. Now, let's get to the lesson. Without it, none of this will make sense to you. Ali al-Tahri, which is this place we're looking at here we can see this region better. Here on the map, let me zoom out a bit so you can understand where this is located. Look, it's right here, very close. Here, okay? This is the summit. It's not just any summit, it's not just some random hill. It's a ridge about 10 kilometers long that separates the Litani River from the plain where Nabatea is located, one of the largest cities in southern Lebanon. Whoever is on top of that summit can see the whole city. It's a privileged spot. You can see the roads, these ones here on the side too, that go up to this one, over there, in that direction, right? And you can reach with fire everything that moves in this valley. In other words, whoever is here controls this whole region, folks, controls everything around this hill, okay? And look, what matters isn't on top, folks. What matters isn't on top of this one, it's below. After Israel left Lebanon in the 2000, Hezbollah took over that summit and spent 2 decades, doing what? Digging. According to the assessment, there is a fortified underground complex there, maybe the most fortified that exists to this day. In this whole region, with a network of tunnels that function as a headquarters and served as a launching point against northern Israel. Let me put up this other map here. Look here at the summit. Here's the northern border. It comes here, see? Look where the summit is. In other words, they fired a lot from this location. Iranian-made missiles would also be stored here. The Israeli army went up to that summit in June and has been there ever since, at the top. And the main mission in southern Lebanon today is just one: to wipe out that complex, to destroy that whole thing completely. But there's a detail that changes all of this. The troops surrounded the complex, but they don't go down into the tunnels. They stay on top, destroy what's on the surface, and wait for terrorists to start coming out. And now I'm going to give you the piece that explains why this summit is so valuable that almost no one noticed it happening. Or actually, I shared this information before, but a lot of people have already forgotten. So I'm here to remind you about this extremely important detail, in case you forgot it. According to the Israeli version, there have been terrorists trapped down there since the siege began. Remember those terrorists who got trapped? They're still there. In the beginning, there was talk of more than 40 high-ranking terrorists being cornered, including commanders from Hezbollah's elite force. 2 months later, the Israeli assessment now talks about something close to 15 of those terrorists who are left, meaning the rest must have died inside or trying to get out of those tunnels. And here comes the most important part of all this. Israel believes, based on intelligence reports, that among them there are officers and instructors from the Iranian Revolutionary Guard and wants to expose this presence publicly. In other words, if we destroy that place, we lose the opportunity to show that there are Iranians at that location. I'm marking this here as an assessment, okay? And I record the other side as well. Hezbollah denies it and says that this story is an attempt to cover up failure on the ground. But there's something that speaks louder than both versions: what the troops are doing up there. The complex, just so you have an idea, has 8 entrances and Israeli fire is kept on all of them all the time. The army closes an entrance, they reopen it, the army goes there and closes it again. Water and power have been cut off, Reinforcements can't get in and help is never going to arrive, right? There's no help for them. This isn't a demolition routine, it's a siege. It's a siege with people waiting for someone to stick their head out. And no one should say that Israel is afraid of Iran, because Iran made threats about this, right? Because that's not it, that's not what happened. What was holding back this operation was American pressure. That is, while those negotiations with Tehran were ongoing, Washington didn't want an explosion of that magnitude disrupting the talks, especially since there are important people from Iran here. So Iran applied pressure. Remember that Iran applied pressure? If they attack this place, we will attack Israel. Now Israel has been attacking this location for 3 consecutive days. But this week, what changed, right? This week, the American President Trump announced that there are no more negotiations with Iran. And look at what happened right after that. The attacks in that region increased. For those of you who thought everything was calm, they increased. And it's this waiting that explains why the same name appears on the list every single night. Guys, every night it's the same news from the same place. On the Israeli side, the version is straightforward and always comes in the same format. The army reports that it is attacking the infrastructure of the terrorist organization Hezbollah in response to actions against the troops operating in the Qum area, and that it will continue to act to remove threats. And these actions against the troops are not just theories. On the 15th of this month, a drone loaded with explosives hit the soldiers of the combat engineering unit right in that area of Qum, leaving an officer and 2 fighters seriously injured. And at the beginning of the month, for those who remember, an explosive device went off against reservists inside a building in one of these villages near this location. And 2 of them didn't make it home. They fell in combat. So add those 2 things together and you understand the routine of this place. During the day, the ceasefire exists only on paper, and at night, the demolition continues. And from time to time, someone on the other side tries to use a drone or explosive against the Israeli army, but nothing against northern Israel. And now the big change that came out yesterday, which is the most important information of this livestream. A Western diplomatic source told a Lebanese television channel that this week Hezbollah proposed handing over the Al-Awtari area to the Lebanese army. They are now willing to hand over the same area to the army, and the same source gave the reason very clearly. He said that their ability to continue holding this location has diminished, and what is happening now is an attempt to withdraw the fighters and equipment that are still there. Guys, this is a huge, gigantic place. It's like one of those cities built inside a mountain, and here you connect the 2 points I gave you today. Getting the fighters out of there is exactly what they need, because some of their people have been trapped in that underground area, probably Iranians, for over 2 months, supposedly without water and without power. And without food. The food that was in there and the water that was in there, that's what they've been surviving on. The offer to hand over the summit to the Lebanese army might actually be an attempt to buy a way out for those who are down there. And now compare it to 2 months ago. At that time, it was the Lebanese army that offered to take over this area. And Hezbollah's response was to refuse and immediately threatened to shoot at any Lebanese force that entered that region. And the day before yesterday, the local press was still reporting that they had rejected an American and Arab proposal to give up that hilltop. And on the same day, a lawmaker connected to Hezbollah said they would defend that place by all means. In other words, it's a place of extreme importance. You know, Lau, do you know what's inside there and who is inside that location? Could it be that the leader, Naim Karam, is sitting in there hiding? Could there really be important people from Iran inside who went to visit and ended up getting trapped in the middle of the crossfire? Something big and important is happening at that location. A day later, the story turns into an offer to surrender. And I want you to understand what this change means, because it's not generosity and it's not diplomacy, okay? Not in any way is it that. No one gives away for free the highest and most costly position that took 20 years to build. You only give it up when you realize you can't hold it anymore, and that the price of staying there is losing the people and equipment that are still inside. There are rumors, okay? Rumors again. Rumors, nothing confirmed by anyone. We'll only know when we actually get into this place that might have uranium hidden there, okay? Rumors again, theories. That Iran might have transferred the uranium there, and that's why the Iranians got stuck during this transfer. It's all theory, it's all rumor. We're going to treat this as a rumor, and on the day we go in, maybe it will be revealed or maybe not. This is what months of pressure, my friends, produces when it's constant. Pressure, force, maximum force from the Israeli army. It's not a victory headline. It's the day the other side asks to leave through the doors, through the back door. And why hand this over to the Lebanese army and not to an international force or to the Israeli army? Because the Lebanese army is also made up of Shiites. There are many Shiites in the Lebanese army. And maybe Hezbollah's hope is that these members of the army itself will remove from there the people and the things they don't want anyone to find out about. That's how I understand this surrender or this proposal from Hezbollah to hand over this place. And here I also need to be honest with you because there's another side to the coin. Handing it over to the Lebanese army only solves things, my friend. If the Lebanese army does the job, we know that's not going to happen. It's not going to happen. If that complex changes ownership on paper and stays intact underground, absolutely nothing changes. Only the doorman's name changes. The real test isn't the flag that will fly on top of the summit, it's what will happen with the tunnels underneath it. If these explanations help you understand what the headline doesn't tell you, give it a thumbs up now, like it now. It only takes a second, folks. Your finger won't fall off. I promise, it doesn't hurt anyone to like a video. Not just mine, but any other YouTube channel. And on top of all that, there's also an American angle to this that puts pressure on the Lebanese state in another way. According to the high-ranking Lebanese official, the American general who coordinates the monitoring of the agreement delivered a message to the authorities in Beirut. The message is as follows. If Lebanon and Israel do not reach an agreement on the new trial zone in the south, the United States would be the one to define this zone. So far, Israel has not decided in any of the negotiations what this new trial zone will be, right? So, if they don't do it, the American will go there and say, this is where it has to be. Trial zone, for those who are not following, is the area where the Lebanese army takes the place of the Israeli troops and becomes responsible for dismantling Hezbollah's terrorist infrastructure. Now, just to make one thing clear, that's not it. We're not talking about this yellow line, okay? We are talking about this other part here. Up here, inside the yellow line, this pilot project is not even on paper yet, okay? They are not even discussing the army leaving this yellow line. For now, the withdrawal here hasn't been discussed. What we're talking about is this other region. The program has existed since July, this pilot program, and so far the assessment is that it's moving too slowly and is too limited. And it's here that the position the UN peacekeepers handed over to the Lebanese army this week comes back into focus. They would have handed over a specific location in southern Lebanon, which belonged to them, or they were in charge of that location, or they were in charge of that location. They never really took care of anything, absolutely nothing, and handed it over to the Lebanese army. Every position that leaves the hands of the UN and goes into the hands of the Lebanese army is exactly the scenario the Americans really want to speed up. The problem is the same as always. Taking a position is easy. What's difficult, my friends, is taking responsibility for what's underneath that position. And there's a backstory that explains all this urgency. There have already been 6 rounds of negotiations between Israel and Lebanon with American mediation, and from those came a framework agreement, gradual disarmament on one side, gradual withdrawal on the other. While you hand over your weapons, we pull back a little from this area up here to the yellow zone. But this framework doesn't have a deadline, okay? There's no date to disarm, no date to withdraw, and that's exactly why each side tries to create facts on the ground while the agreement doesn't move forward at all. And yesterday, things got even tighter, this time in the bank account. More pressure on the bank account. The US Treasury announced sanctions against a financing network of the terrorist organization Hezbollah and changed the wording of the designation to state that the organization operates on behalf of the Iranian regime. This is huge, folks. This is huge. It's the first time they've changed this wording about command, in other words, clearly acknowledging that they are under the command of the Revolutionary Guard. Because it's all connected to yesterday's live stream, folks. The crackdown on Iran's money and the crackdown on its Lebanese branch's money are the same operation. Meanwhile, the Prime Minister of Lebanon and the Minister of Defense went today, the Lebanese Minister of Defense, went to the south of the country. They went to visit the Lebanese army command in the region right after that heavy night of demolitions that happened there, that I showed you here. Look, the president of the Lebanese parliament spent the week defending the presence of the UN peacekeeping force, because we know that the UN peacekeeping force has never done absolutely anything in southern Lebanon, saying that ending it would be the biggest crime against the south. That's the situation. The Lebanese state is being pushed to take on a responsibility it never wanted to assume and is trying to buy time by holding on to the UN's blue helmets any way it can. Put the UN in our place and we'll solve this problem. The same UN peacekeeping force that's been stationed in the south for almost 20 years, and we know it has never stopped anything. They saw Hezbollah digging tunnels, saw the truck carrying rockets driving down the road, saw a warehouse being set up under a house, and did absolutely nothing. And before we go to Gaza, I need to wrap things up here on the third front, okay? Before we wrap up that story, let's go here to the third front, which gets the least attention. Actually, it hasn't come up much. I brought some information about Syria. Israeli troops, my friends, are still here. Take a look at this. They are still in Syria, okay? Stationed in the security zone of the Syrian side, in the Mount Hermon area. Up here, do you see it? This whole area here is the security zone. The army is still there, okay? And there's no date set for them to leave. Nobody even talks about it. In other words, it's pretty much permanent. And last week, Israel hit an airbase in northwest Syria, just hours after a military delegation had passed through that runway. And I told this story here in detail during the live streams yesterday and over the past few days. And today I'm just bringing this up so you don't lose track here, folks. Just so you don't lose track, because there are 3 territories at the same time. All 3 with Israeli soldiers inside and none of them with any withdrawal date. And now I need to take you here to Gaza, because the line also shifted there this week. Look here at the other front. It's down here, okay? Let's put Gaza here. Take a look, Gaza Strip. Let's mark it here, okay? This week it also shifted. And if you just joined, let me quickly explain what this line is that should be yellow here. But on this map it's not yellow, it's purple. We know this as the yellow line in Israel. When the agreement came into effect, the Israeli army withdrew up to this line, right? It's a negotiated line, and that became the internal border of the Gaza Strip. On one side is the area under Israeli control, which is this area here, look. In other words, the army is here in this region. It started in just over half of the Gaza Strip, and today it's close to 70% of the territory. Practically this whole region here doesn't have any civilian population. On the other side are the areas where Hamas, not only Hamas, but also other armed militias fight for control among themselves, against each other. In other words, there's a war going on here every day. People from Hamas are being kidnapped, and so are people on the militia side. There are clans fighting among themselves. There's an internal war happening here every day. Guys, every day there's a war between these terrorist organizations in here for control, to see who will control this region. And the Israeli position has been the same since the beginning. The troops stay where they are and won't withdraw any further until there's real disarmament and demilitarization of the Gaza Strip. But the yellow line has become a place of daily friction. This part right here on the border, this line here that divides. Look at what came from the other side. It was like this. A tank ran over an explosive that was planted near this line in the south of the Gaza Strip, right here in this region, okay? Without injuring anyone. No one was hurt, not a single soldier. And on the same day, 2 terrorists crossed the line to try to sabotage the troops' equipment and ended up being hit and eliminated. A few days later, an explosive detonated near the line in the north of the Gaza Strip, up there, okay? And along with that, there were also shots fired from inside against soldiers in this region, in that same area. The troops responded with fire against the location of the shooting, and there were also people, so another terrorist was eliminated. And there was an incident that really sums up the level of strain in this region. A group of terrorists crossed the line, stole Israeli military equipment and managed to get back to the other side. They were able to do this so you can get an idea of the amount of military equipment in this region and also the level of strain, right? There's a lot of exhaustion here. There are soldiers who have been here for a very long time in this region, okay? And that's proof that there's some wear and tear in this area. They managed to steal and went back inside the controlled area of the Gaza Strip. And on the Israeli side, the current order is containment. There is a standing order of restraint, meaning don't shoot without reason, right? Don't shoot anywhere, only with explicit authorization from higher up. The attacks in Gaza have been practically suspended since the American agreement at the end of July, with one exception that still applies: firing at anyone identified as preparing an imminent attack. In other words, if you see a guy with a weapon on the other side, you can't shoot, only if he's preparing an imminent attack. We started making mistakes again at this point. It shouldn't be like this at all. We're making mistakes again and repeating the same mistakes from the past. Anyone with a weapon on the other side is a terrorist, and that's what happened in the last few days. The army hit a cafe at the port of Gaza City, where commanders of the terrorist organization Hamas were gathered planning actions against the troops. They hit in the south of the strip a cell that was preparing an attack, and today reported that they hit in the center of the Gaza Strip a terrorist who took part in October 7th and held hostages in captivity. One less on the list. And the day before yesterday, they also released footage of the engineering troops working near the yellow line. Tunnels were located and sealed that added up to more than 2 kilometers in length. They're sealed with concrete, folks. Concrete. That's how they seal these tunnels. And now the part that almost no one is really discussing, which is actually the main issue this week: the entry of international forces into this region here under Israeli control. We're talking about the yellow zone, the purple zone, not yet in the areas where Hamas is. Not yet, okay? The Security Cabinet approved the entry of the so-called International Stabilization Force, and it starts out very small, even too small, about 2,500 soldiers. And the rules that Israel imposed say a lot about the distrust of this international force. Israel decides which countries can send people to this region. In other words, they'll come in here, just so you understand. Let's say there's an Israeli base here at this point. These 200 soldiers will replace the Israeli soldiers here. And so on, right? Consecutively, throughout the entire Gaza Strip. Slowly, everything in this area here will be replaced under Israeli control. This would be the original plan, okay? The original plan. So these 200 who arrive there or are still going to arrive will replace some Israeli force that is inside the Gaza Strip. And Israel decides which countries can send, right? Any country. Turkey wanted to send and was blocked. Only those who have a peace agreement with Israel and do not act against Israel in international forums are allowed in. The force operates in coordination with the Israeli army, and the first destination is the perimeter of a pilot humanitarian zone, the Rafah area, that is right here. In this region. Perimeter pilot program, right? To see if this plan works. And the first step has already been taken. On the 12th of this month, images released by Israeli organizations showed the first international teams entering the Gaza Strip through the southern crossing. They went to do reconstruction surveys in the area controlled by Israel on this side of the yellow line, that is, here inside the Rafah region, so you can get a sense of the scale of what's been drawn on paper. The American commander in charge of assembling this force has already talked about getting there in the future, right? Way out there in the future, with up to 20,000 foreign soldiers in this region. Indonesia promised 8,000 men and would take the position of deputy commander of this international force. Uganda approved the deployment of troops in its parliament. Morocco also pledged troops. And on other lists, Kosovo and Albania also appear. And here I want to give you my own opinion, because I have a very clear opinion about Uganda. Back in March, for those who remember, the army chief there, who is the president's son, publicly offered to send soldiers to help Israel against Iran. Do you remember that? If that decision were in my hands, I would pick up the phone right now, and tell him the following. Deal closed, my friend. Start sending your soldiers, but now to Gaza. I need all of them there. Fill that place up with his soldiers. There's no problem with that, because that's what really matters, folks. Having inside the Gaza Strip a friendly army from a country that has a long-standing military relationship with Israel and that won't speak out against us in international forums. Someone is going to have to do the hard work there one day, probably, right? It will be Israel, and it's much better if it's not Israel, that it's someone who's on our side. Compare the two numbers. 20,000 soldiers is the plan, but only 200 have been authorized so far. Only 200 out of 20,000. This gap between the real plan and the plan is an exact picture of the distrust surrounding this whole issue of an international force in the Gaza Strip. And now listen to this analysis, because this is where things get delicate. This force isn't coming in to disarm anyone, okay? For those writing in the comments, that's not the role of this international force. They're not going to disarm anyone. They're coming in exactly where there is already Israeli control. Israel has already gone there, cleared the area, and handed over the area already cleared. As long as the disarmament on the other side, meaning on this side here, doesn't happen, there won't be any international force. And on the Israeli side, there is a real concern, rebuilding before disarming. Before disarming means financing the next round with international money, because that's what the Americans want. Starting the reconstruction of this region without having the guarantee that the other side is disarmed. In other words, soon they move to the side that's completely rebuilt and take over the rebuilt side, so you're basically financing the next round with international money. From the American side, the view is that if reconstruction doesn't start somewhere, the whole plan will stall and no one will step in to do the heavy lifting. And the Israeli Prime Minister has already rejected the 15-point roadmap that linked troop withdrawal to phase disarmament, saying he wants real disarmament, not just disarmament on paper. So let's bring it together here, folks. Put Lebanon together with Gaza and you see the same question on both maps, just with different uniforms. In Lebanon, they want the Lebanese army to take over the Ali al-Tahri ridge and dismantle what's underneath it. In Gaza, they want an international force to take over the area and dismantle what's underneath it. It's the same thing, and in both places, the question that decides everything is the same. Who's actually going to go down into the tunnel? Of course, it's Israel, right? And Israel is going to have to do it. There's no other way. Because as long as no one goes down, the underground complex will still be there, waiting for the day when the world's attention, for some reason, shifts to another subject and they start rebuilding everything all over again. And now I owe you the story that I saved for the beginning of this video, which is an emotional and very important story. This morning, at the Mount of Olives Cemetery in Jerusalem, a soldier who died in Lebanon in 1982 was buried. He was buried today, folks. His name is Yehuda Katz. He served in the Armored Corps. He was a tank gunner. He was 22 years old and was only 10 days away from finishing his military service at the time. That's when his unit fell into an ambush by the Syrian army in the Bekaa Valley over in Lebanon, okay? In the Battle of Sultan Yaqub, that was the name of that war. That battle lasted one night, cost the lives of 21 Israeli soldiers, and left 3 missing, 3 families who were left without a grave to visit. The first of them returned in 2019 was found. That is, was buried in 2019. The second one returned last year, also found and buried in a Mossad operation in Syrian territory, which was almost cancelled because it was so risky. And the third was this one, Yehuda Katz. According to the official announcement, the information only started to arrive in the last few months. And it was from this information that they set up a special operation, carried out jointly by military intelligence and the Mossad, inside Lebanese territory, that is, during all this exchange of fire between Israel and Hezbollah, this was happening behind the scenes. His remains were brought to Israel, identified here, and the family was informed that he was found. The chief of staff said the following, quote, "Decades have passed, but our obligation to those who have fallen has not changed. We don't leave anyone behind." End quote. And I want you to understand why I chose to end with this today. Because in this same live stream, I told you about soldiers operating inside Lebanon over the last 3 nights. They're young men, my friends, the same age as Yehuda Katz, 22 years old. 20 years old. It's the same age, exactly the same age, going in and out of that same territory. And what he knows, and what their families know, is that there is commitment. If the worst happens, this country will go back for them and keep at it for as long as it takes. 40 years, 50, 60, 70 years. Whatever is necessary will be done. 44 years. Governments from the right and the left have come and gone here in the government of Israel, several secret operations, and the burial this morning in Jerusalem. This is the contract that supports a citizen's army. And this is where I finish with today's Hebrew word, sheket. It's written here, folks. Write it down. I'll write in the description how to write sheket in Hebrew and the transliteration as well. Sheket means silence. It means peace and quiet. And it's the word that sums up today. On this side of the border, there's sheket. There's silence. The city is running, kids are sleeping through the night, the siren doesn't go off. And on the other side, it's not like that. There are troops coming in, structures collapsing, and the summit is surrounded in Lebanon. The silence here didn't fall from the sky, folks. And it didn't come from an agreement signed by the Americans. It's made every night, on the other side of the line, by heroes you don't see. And I'm still here, straight from the Judean mountains, inside Judea and Samaria, putting the pieces together one by one in a way the mainstream media won't do for you. Subscribe, turn on the notification bell, and share this video with your group of friends, your work group, and even with the usual left-wing trolls, right folks? Because they also deserve to watch real content. Let's go to the comments quickly. Thank you, Anderson, for the super sticker. Eunice, thank you for the super sticker. Karen, thank you as well for the super sticker. Super stickers really help the channel a lot. The channel is not sponsored. Some people wrote that the channel is sponsored by Qatar. Someone else wrote again that it's sponsored by Bibi, and others have said it's sponsored by Trump. No, folks, you are the sponsors. There's no sponsorship from anyone here. No politician sponsors this channel. Nothing. Thank you all. My friends, that's it for now. If anything serious happens in the Middle East, I'll come back at any moment. If not, I'll be back later with more information about Iran, because there are already new developments involving Iran about the Strait of Hormuz. The war hasn't stopped, and don't miss the episodes because it's important for you to follow this. It's very important, because later on, everything starts all over again, and you have no idea why it started, right? So you need to follow everything step by step to really understand what's going on here in the Middle East. Hugs to all my friends in Israel, and see you in the next live stream.